We've already built the case for free trade in the study of supply and demand. Trade between people, whether they live in the same country or not, offers the opportunity for gains due to the science of comparative advantage. Trade allows us to take advantage of each other's lower opportunity costs and gives every person, town, city, state, or country the chance to reach outcomes they could not otherwise have reached on their own. Free trade between nations allows us to optimize that process and achieve the most efficient outcomes. Imagine that after years of tinkering, you built an incredible machine. At the top of this machine, you throw in various chemicals, plastics, and leather. The machine buzzes and churns for a minute, and then out pops a car. You don't have to do any other work. You just load in the chemicals, plastics, and leather, and boom, you've got another car. Not only would you be rich, you'd be heralded as a genius, praised for a clever invention which was going to cut down on the cost of making cars and be a boon for consumers and the economy. But you would also be too late. This machine already exists. It's called a cargo ship, and we already loaded up with chemicals, plastics, and leather, our largest exports to Japan, and we send it to Japan, and they return it full of cars. Free trade allows us to use our resources more efficiently. Through trade, it takes fewer resources to achieve the same outcomes. To block those gains would be the same as blocking genius new inventions, which do the same thing. You might be thinking, doesn't buying local help the economy with jobs and stuff? If you buy a product from a local supplier instead of a manufacturer in China, doesn't that keep the local person employed, which in turn means they will have money to buy what you produce? And if we just rely on China or other countries to make everything, there will be no jobs left for us. Aren't we shooting ourselves in the foot with trade? No. When we buy products from China, we exchange our currency for theirs, which means that someone in China is getting American dollars. Sure, that person might just sit on those dollars forever, never bothering to spend them on anything. But that would be good news. That means we traded cheap green pieces of paper for actual useful stuff. We would virtually be getting the stuff for free. But that isn't what happens, though. Instead, the Chinese person with American dollars is going to spend them. They're like gift cards, only good in American stores. We already know this from the balance of payments. Whether you spend the money locally or on imports, it's going to come back and stimulate demand in our country. Going out of your way to spend money locally just helps your local governments collect taxes on local transactions and directs local resources to inefficient uses.
It's activist vacation is what it is. Spring break for anarchist wannabes. Oh, black t-shirts, the gas masks as fashion accessories.
These kids today with the hair and the clothes.
All right, that's it, Flatfoot.
I got great feet.
I want the benefits of free trade. Food is cheaper.
Yes.
Food is cheaper. Clothes are cheaper, steel is cheaper, cars are cheaper. Phone service is cheaper. You feel me building a rhythm here? That's because I'm a speechwriter. I know how to make a point.
Toby.
It lowers prices, it raises income. You see what I did with lowers and raises there?
Yes.
It's called the science of listener attention. We did repetition, we did floating opposites, and now you end with the one that's not like the others. Ready? Free trade stops wars. And that's it. Free trade stops wars. And we figure out a way to fix the rest. One world, one peace. I'm sure I've seen that on a sign somewhere.
Protectionism, or the policy of restricting international trade through tariffs, quotas, and subsidies, is a benefit to producers, but at the greater expense of consumers. For example, the U.S. government guarantees a high price for sugar produced here and limits imports by imposing prohibitively high tariffs above a set quota. As a result, the price of sugar in the United States is about twice as high as it is around the world. This helps line the pockets of sugarcane producers in Louisiana and the politically important state of Florida, where over half of U.S. sugarcane is grown. But it also directs our resources inefficiently. In the 1980s, the US price of sugar was 4 times that of anywhere else. Canadian entrepreneurs developed a super high sugar iced tea that could be sifted after it had been shipped to the United States, avoiding the tariff on sugar by instead paying the tariff on beverages. And then people in the United States could extract the sugar from the beverage for resale. The high price of sugar also led to changes in other beverages. Coca-Cola and Pepsi both switched their formulas from using sugar to using high fructose corn syrup, as did a slew of other products. Now, if you want a Coke made with real sugar, you have to import it from Mexico, another workaround for the restrictive tariffs. Estimates suggest that U.S. consumers lose $2.42 billion every year, while producers only gain $1.1 billion. And that doesn't include the changes in product quality that comes from these inefficiencies. Prohibiting trade preserves an inefficient state of affairs for incumbent firms who don't want to compete. And while opening up to trade will bring about a painful transition, the outcome is one that leaves everyone better off. Economic studies which explore the costs of protectionism conclude that global incomes would be 1.7% higher if all nations eliminated barriers to trade, which works out to about $200 per person per year. But of course, this is because trade between nations is already pretty free. We've gotten most of the gains. Nevertheless, it should be pointed out that these arguments for economic freedom do not just apply to the movement of goods and services across borders, but also of people. Many of the same fears people have about free trade are fears they have about immigration. While trade in goods and services between nations is mostly free in the modern world, the ability of people to move from one country to another is severely restricted. Economic studies which have investigated the costs of these restrictions have all come to a startling conclusion. The consensus estimate is that eliminating all barriers to emigration would roughly double global GDP. Double! It takes more than 20 years for the global economy to double. And right now, there are trillion-dollar bills sitting on the sidewalk that the nations of the world could pick up with the stroke of a few pens. Trade. It's an incredible thing.